All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering the hidden psychological traps of modern consumerism. And honestly, more importantly, we're going to show you exactly how to stop the money leaks that are quietly draining your wealth. If you've ever felt like your bank account just kind of empties out just as fast as it fills up, well, you are definitely in the right place.
So here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to start by defining the core problem with the leaky bucket trap, expose what we call the game of invisible money, and then we'll introduce our ultimate weapon to stop the bleeding, the Kakeibo strategy. From there, we'll break down the four spending pillars, jump into some tactical leak prevention, and finally wrap it all up with the power of consistency. Let's get to it.
All right, part one, the leaky bucket trap. Stop the bleeding.
Picture this. Imagine two guys standing out in an absolute downpour. The first guy is holding this massive bucket, right? That represents a really high income. But there's a catch. His bucket has 100 holes punched in the bottom. The rain pours in, sure, but it pours right back out just as fast. By the end of the storm, he's totally exhausted and, well, completely broke. Now look at the second guy. He's holding just a small cup, representing a much lower salary. But his cup is solid steel, literally 0 holes. He catches every single drop. When that cup is full, he pours it into a barrel, and then another. At the end of the storm, the guy with the massive leaky bucket is begging for water, while the guy with the small steel cup is incredibly wealthy. The takeaway here? Wealth isn't just about how much money you make. It's really about how effectively you capture what you earn. If you want to build wealth, you have to stop the leaks. You've got to stop the bleeding. Which brings us to section 2, the game of invisible money, uncovering the trap. So why do we leak so much money in the first place? Well, it all comes down to frictionless spending. Honestly, we're so bad with money today because money has basically become completely invisible. Think about it. You tap your card, you double-click Apple Pay, you hit buy now on Amazon. You literally never see the money leave your hand. Corporations have intentionally poured billions of dollars into designing a system that entirely removes friction. Why on earth would they do that? Because when you pay with physical, hard cash, your brain registers this psychological phenomenon known as the pain of paying. It actually hurts a little bit. Digital tools totally numb that pain. The goal is to get you to spend your life energy without even noticing it, until, you get that credit card statement at the end of the month. And by then, the damage is totally done. So the absolutely crucial thing to remember here is this. You're in a game, whether you play or not. Modern spending is essentially a rigged game of self-interest, completely designed by massive corporations, and they are playing incredibly strategically to get your money. If you refuse to play strategically to protect your own money, well, you aren't staying neutral. You're just becoming a pawn in their game. Refusing to play just means you're choosing to lose.
So how do we win? Section 3, the Kakeibo strategy, reintroducing friction. Enter Kakeibo. This was actually invented way back in 1904 by Japan's very first female journalist, and it is essentially a household financial ledger. Now, let me be clear. This is not some flashy digital app. It is definitely not an Excel spreadsheet. It is literally a physical book and a pen. Kakeibo is this amazing, mindful philosophy that forces you to stare your spending right in the face. It's the conscious act of intentionally reintroducing friction back into your daily life.
And does it work? Well, 35%. Thanks to this Kakeibo method, Japanese housewives have historically acted as these sort of secret CFOs of their households, and they've managed to save up to a whopping 35% of some really modest incomes. That's huge! It proves it's not about earning a CEO's massive salary, it's really about developing a monk's level of discipline.
See, Kakeibo fundamentally rewires your brain. Think about how most people budget. They budget completely backward, right? They spend first, and then they try to save whatever happens to be left over, which, let's be real, is usually 0. Kakeibo completely flips that equation. It says, income minus savings equals spending money. You literally pay yourself first. If you make, say, $3,000 and you want to save $500, you remove that $500 immediately, right off the top. This creates what we call a beneficial artificial scarcity. It completely forces you to get creative and prioritize your absolute must-haves over those little nice-to-haves.
All right, section 4, the 4 spending pillars, categorize to conquer. So Kakeibo exposes exactly where your money is leaking by categorizing every single expense into one of 4 specific pillars. Number 1 is survival. These are your absolute non-negotiable needs. We're talking rent, groceries, medicine. Number 2 is optional. This is dining out, shopping, random subscriptions, and listen closely here, because this is the leak. This bucket right here is where the battle for your wealth is won or lost. Number 3 is culture. Think books, museums, educational courses. Kakeibo actually strongly encourages this bucket because spending money to grow your mind is a solid investment. And finally, number 4, extra. These are for those totally unexpected repairs or, birthday gifts. Visually breaking your money down like this immediately separates your true survival needs from those super sneaky optional leaks. Moving on to Section 5, Tactical Leak Prevention, Real-World Tools.
The really crucial point here is shifting away from a mindless habit to a mindful practice. You see, most people wait until the very end of the month to even look at their finances. Guys, that is a financial autopsy. The patient is already dead. Kakeibo, on the other hand, is a daily checkup. Every single evening, you sit down for literally just 3 minutes and physically write down what you spent. If you spent $50 on drinks last night, you have to write it down today. You actually feel the physical sting of writing it out on paper. And you know what? That little sting is exactly what prevents you from going out and doing it all over again tonight.
And for that really tricky optional bucket we talked about, we use the classic cash envelope method. At the start of the month, you withdraw the exact amount of money you've budgeted for fun, and you stick it in a physical envelope. When you go out, you only take cash from that envelope. And when it's empty, the fun is absolutely over. You can't overdraft, you can't just put it on credit, you literally cannot cheat physics because an empty envelope simply cannot buy a beer. Having this hard physical limit teaches absolute self-regulation and impulse control. Then there's the 30-day cooling off period. Look, we live in a crazy era of instant gratification. You see something online, you click it, and boom, it arrives tomorrow. Honestly, this destroys wealth. With Kakeibo, if you see a want, you simply write it down on a wish list, and you force yourself to wait exactly 30 days. And here's the crazy part. 90% of the time, the urge to buy it will just vanish. You'll suddenly realize you were just bored or maybe stressed out. This tactic completely kills that dopamine shopping loop and makes sure you're actually making purchases with true intention rather than just acting on impulse. Finally, Section 6, the power of consistency, building the mindset. A poor routine can destroy a rich dream. I love that quote. There's this really powerful story about a train station cleaner in Portugal named Lucas. He basically had nothing but tired hands and this quiet, burning dream. But he made a promise to himself. He decided to dedicate just 1 quiet hour every single day to reading and studying. While other people mocked him, his quiet daily consistency slowly started changing his vocabulary, his habits, and eventually his entire destiny. He actually went on to open his own successful business. So what's the lesson here? Your future isn't built in one massive emotional decision. It's built in all those small promises you keep to yourself when absolutely nobody is watching. Just like Lucas's 1 hour of reading, sitting down for 3 minutes every night to write in your Kakeibo ledger can quietly defeat years and years of financial failure. All right, before we wrap up, let's do a little homework. I am officially issuing you a 7-day Kakeibo challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to stop just checking your banking app. Instead, physically write down every single cent you spend. Use a notebook, use a napkin. Honestly, I don't care. Just write it down by hand. Then at the end of the week, go through and circle all your wants in red and calculate the total. I promise you, you are going to be absolutely shocked at how much invisible money you are literally setting on fire. But hey, awareness is always the first step to change, right? Which leaves us with one final, undeniable question to think about. Your life is basically a ledger. You only have limited time and limited resources. So will you master your money, or will you just continue to let it master you? The path to buying back your freedom, it doesn't start with winning the lottery. It starts right now, today, with a simple notebook, a pen, and a choice. So pick up the pen, plug those money leaks, and take back control of your future.